Hello and welcome to the Bike Show. This week we're coming to you from the world launch of a brand new sport tyre from Pirelli. Those of you in the know might be able to guess which part of the world we're in. But first, once that delicious V4 Panigale is gone, let's cross over to Donovan, who is on another holiday, this time in Portugal on a Ducati.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Now, despite what Matt and Harry might tell you, I am not, in fact, on holiday. I am actually working. I'm working very hard. It's a freezing cold over here. We're under a bridge in a city called Lisbon in a country called Portugal. And we're here today to talk about Ducati, more importantly, the Ducati Scramblers. Now, they've sold a lot of the things, 46,000 of them. And they've got quite a family going. They've got a 400, they've got an 800, but like the villains in the Mario Brothers games, they've saved the big daddy till last. And that is the Scrambler with more gusto, the Scrambler with more mean, the Scrambler 1100. Now, the theme for this bike is ride bigger, and they've literally taken that to heart. They've started with a brand new chassis that is literally bigger. The wheelbase is 69 millimeters longer, the seat height is 20 millimeters higher, the whole thing is 50 millimeters wider. But the part I really love is about all this bigness is that big new engine. It's a 1100cc air-cooled motor. So some of you might recognize that the last time we saw it was in the Monster 1100 Evo, except it sort of isn't. Of course, like the Monster 1100, the Big Daddy Scrambler uses a 1078cc air-cooled 2-valve 90-degree V-twin, a motor demographic that Ducati built for many years and should be pretty good at. Except that the engineers have given this one a big overhaul, redesigning and altering every single component, creating what is essentially a different motor. While the Monster motor they began with pushed a worthy 100 horsepower and 103 Nm of torque, the result of their labors is that this Scrambler churns out a more pedestrian 86 horsepower and 88 Nm of torque. There are more problems in that this model truly lives up to the idea that a Scrambler is a style and not a function, meaning it has absolutely no off-roading credentials whatsoever, cultivating a suspension travel of just 150 millimeters, very little ground clearance, and no motor protection whatsoever. Oh dear. And that is sort of why people shouldn't look at spec sheets. Spec sheets are great in every way for giving you numbers, but it misses out on something. It misses out on that little quality, something I like to call magicalness. Now, I realize the word magicalness doesn't quite exist, and it's a bit superfluous given we've already got the word magic. But magic, I don't know, it doesn't quite do it. It's two measly syllables, and it's a bit sort of airy, fairy, Tinkerbell, Snapchat filter. It just doesn't do it. This thing has something else, the magicalness. It should be on the spec sheet. It should say magicalness factor. And the magicalness factor of this is, oh yeah. Making big horsepower isn't the Scrambler way. In fact, and this is a rare occurrence, too much horsepower would probably ruin it. This is, after all, not a big speed machine like the Monster Evo was. What they've instead done is concentrate on making this bike ultra-rideable, ultra-user-friendly, and ultra-harmless fun. It might push lower maximum power and torque figures, but they've massively boosted the bottom end and mid-range of this bike, creating a near-flat torque curve that peaks slightly at just 4,750 RPM and drops off at 6,500 RPM, 2,000 RPM before the red line. What this means is that this motorcycle is all about feel, about the emotion it instills, the magicalness. You ride at less than 6,500 RPM because going above that would be idiotic, and you feel that wave of torque washing over you. More so, the single overhead cam's air-cooled motor has a personality about it, a sound, a feeling, and a charm. It's hard to put it to words, but it's a bit like the difference between a chug-chug steam locomotive and a plain Jane diesel electric train. There's no objective reason to go for the steam, but you do tend to smile more when you do. However, while this bike may be bigger, it's still a Scrambler after all, and that means it's not necessarily big. Ducati has given this bike a bigger theme, meaning the style is bigger, meatier, and more menacing, especially when you look at those twin silencers. Also, the profile of this bike is less sit-up and beg and looks a bit more athletic, like Usain Bolt crouched in the starting line, waiting for the starter's pistol. And while the seat height is taller than the 800, at 820 millimeters, it still isn't exactly tall, not when put in a more global motorcycling perspective. The seat is massively comfortable, as is the seating position. And while the suspension is hard in an off-road environment, it is excellent on the tar, offering both stability and comfort. Also, apart from the smaller size, there is famously no fairing and high handlebars, meaning that it is a doddle to handle, and the rider feels more in control than on bigger bikes. However, it's not invincible, and despite its sort of classicalness, there is still a barrage of technology. It has an inertia measurement unit similar to the Panigale V4 and a ride-by-wire throttle. This, of course, opens the door to 3 rider modes, multiple level traction control, and even cornering ABS. All of this adds to the safety element of the motorcycle. However, from a personal perspective, it does take away from the original Scrambler philosophy of classic simplicity. Also, less electroid should mean less price, something that might be more appealing to the potential Scrambler rower. However, this is no deal breaker, and many would approve of more safety. But what is most important is that the roots of this motorcycle still nestle in all that is Scrambler. So there we have it, the big daddy of the Scrambler family. Now, despite all that, it's still a Scrambler. It's still fun, it's still smallish, it's still easygoing, it's still, well, fun. But yet you get a whole lot of oomph with that, and definitely a whole lot of magicalness. Take that, Tinkerbell.
Oh, I feel almost sorry for him. He's been away on holiday again. He hasn't even got a tan, look.
Well, apparently it was a bit damp.
A bit overcast.
Spain,
in a bit.
Lisbon,
That's
damp.
Lisbon, that's Portugal. Good geography lesson.
It was not a bloody...
Of course it was a holiday. Did you enjoy yourself?
No. I mean, what?
Did you go to a foreign country?
A bit.
So it's a holiday.
It's Portugal. I mean,
It's a holiday.
And it was rainy, it was overcast.
Okay, so you haven't got a tan, but you have started to invent your own language.
Well, Shakespeare could do it, you know.
You're not Shakespeare, my son.
By a
Yeah, I
long
know.
story.
So explain this whole magicalness thing. Actually, while you explain that, let's bring up the spec box.
There's 3 different models. You get the standard model, which is 196,000 Rand. Then the one we were riding on that launch, which was called the Special, 213,000 Rand. Ooh. And then you get a sport model that has Terminoni exhausts and Öhlins and all that. That's 223. But what I would like if they brought out like a Scrambler 1100 Evo with like the full old school 1100. I mean, Matt, you were a big fan of that engine.
Yes, that was
also.
a great engine.
It was a great engine.
I'm
I wish
slightly
they would do
disappointed
that.
like you, they've dumbed this engine down for this model, but yeah.
I wish they would do that, like a Scrambler 1100 Evo. I would buy that.
As
Except
always,
it'll probably cost
he's
a
been on
fortune.
holiday, he's come back, he's ridden loads of motorbikes, and he's still not satisfied.
Still not happy.
We will be back after this very short break, and if you've heard a load of bikes going around in the background, well, it's this, Pirelli World Tyre Launch. We'll be talking about that next.